Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFirio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at La Marzocco, and they've been making espresso machines there since 1927. So they're coming up on 100 years of making the world's best espresso machines. In my opinion, it's probably the quintessential espresso machine for our industry. You probably have grown up using a La Marzocco if you've been in the industry for any length of time. They're known for dependability. They're known for beauty as well as innovation and excellence in the technology, in the synthesis of what is happening in coffee today, and making that available inside of an espresso machine that is, reliable. Because La Marzocco has this reputation, I feel very confident recommending them to you. Go ahead and go to their website, lamarzocousa.com, and you can also email info@lamarzocousa.com. Their sales folks will be very helpful and get you the right machine for your cafe. So a huge thanks to La Marzocco. Now, also, rattleware.com. You go there, you're going to find a huge selection of small wares that sometimes you might even say, I wondered who made these things. And it's kind of like that's their goal. Don't want you to know exactly like, oh, it's a flashy rattleware thing. And now they want to be in the background, creating things that make a difference in very small ways times 1,000, because small wares, all of the nooks and crannies of your business have small wares in them. You want that stuff to just work. Shot glasses need to work. Pitchers need to work. Whisks need to work. That's what they do. They want you to be the star, and they're the supporting actors in the stories. So go to rattleware.com and check out their offerings. Find it in the marketplace. This is the kind of company that really is there to support you. Now, today's episode, we're going to talk about keeping your customers excited. So as soon as I started recording this, I said to myself, well, I didn't really say it to myself. I just kind of thought it. I said, do customers really need to be excited all the time? And I thought, well, now that I'm recording, I kind of feel like I have to go through with it. So I'm going to add a little bit to it and give you the idea and then add to it later. First, the idea of keeping your customers excited. There are a couple of ways, actually 3 ways you can do this. One is focusing on them, making them the center of your attention. 2 is maintaining the quality of the thing that you use to serve their needs. And 3 is to surprise them. Now, number 1 is making them the center and the focus of your attention. This kind of goes back to the old and maybe a little bit reductive idea that if you say somebody's name, then it really resonates with them. If somebody's talking to me, they say, Chris, what do you think? Now, that automatically, because we all like the sound of our own names and we kind of have an ego, we are self-seeking organisms in a lot of ways. With your customer, when they understand truly that you are focused on them and you're trying to connect with them and you're really and sincerely trying to serve them. And I don't mean you're trying to do what your manager told you to do so that you don't get in trouble. Or you're trying some gimmick that you read in a book and you say, everybody do this because it's going to help your tips and it's going to make us more money. People can see through that BS. It is not going to work unless you actually believe what you're doing, because we can all kind of sniff out a fake, at least after a while. Some people are a little slower to the party to figure out, oh, they're just doing that because. But if you do care, if you can take what is, I think, your personal responsibility to do what you need to do before you get into work or before you decide even to open a coffee shop, that you actually do care about your customers and that you're not just getting into this because, the coffee is a great market to get into. It seems to be a lot of investors are doing it and a lot of large franchises are growing, and I want a piece of the action. Now, first of all, I don't wish people ill per se. I do wish, though, that people who care sincerely and want to serve people through coffee are more successful than you, if that's your thing. So take that as you will, because I feel like it's better for everybody when those people in those organizations succeed. That gets a person excited because the anticipation is not going to be met. The anticipation of the service or the product quality is not going to be met with disappointment nearly as often as it will in one of these hollow husk or shells of a company that is all sort of there to take advantage of a movement rather than to serve a person, to serve a community. No matter what their marketing says, right? You can know by the experience. You shall know them by their fruit, right? So the idea is first care about your customer and make them the focus. So what is that menu that you're creating? Why is that item chosen the way it's chosen? Does that serve the customer's need? How do you know? Do you know much about the community that you're going into? We have a couple of episodes on gentrification and the brazen way in which people feel they can enter into a space that has been historically developed over generations and act as though they're God's gift to that community. And you're not, first of all. Second of all, it doesn't really resonate as much, and you're not as successful with the community, which to me means you're not that successful. You might be financially successful, but you have a shallow view of success if that's your metric, because you might bring in a lot of people from not that place, and you might have them spend money in your store. But it's a lot like, all of a sudden this large franchise opens up in a place where the rent is cheap, and you get a lot of people that normally would never shop in these areas coming in, taking up the parking spaces. Pretty soon it's just the domino effect of gentrification. And I'm not against markets, and having competition out there and things like that. For what we would call conscious capitalism. And I'm definitely thinking about this when we're developing content for Keys to the Shop. It is for people primarily who are for people. It is for people who are for people. And that means that your marketing is only as good as your ability to deliver it. And I think prioritizing the local community especially is what we should be doing. And that means you have to maybe take a little bit longer lead time on developing your concept of what kind of coffee shop are you going to be? Is it a coffee shop for a different community that you're opening in this community so as to displace them? Or like, how are you doing a favor to this area by being here? Or is it really just a favor to yourself? Good questions, right? Now, getting maybe a little in the weeds here, but the idea is you want to focus on your customer. That makes them feel good. And you can tell when somebody's done their homework, when they truly care and they are serving, because their mind is always looking for ways to connect and serve and remember. So that brings us to number 2, to keep your customers excited. And that is to be faithful to execute on the things that you say you're going to do regularly. Invest in what you need to invest in to be clear, resourced, consistent, excellence, maintaining that excellence over time, to fight entropy, to fight that downhill slope of quality decline that always happens with coffee shops when they start to scale, when they start to get distracted by the industry and competitions and titles and comparison traps and all of this stuff. And they take their eyes off the actual game and the craft of operations to support the fulfilling of promises in the cafe for people. That includes your staff, by the way. That's the game. It's all deeper and it's internal mostly, so that it creates a better business, a longer lasting business. And it forces you to simplify so that you don't overcomplicate things, which we tend to do because we get distracted and we forget what it is we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it for, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is to get them excited. You do need to surprise them. I do think that there's room for the seasonals, the signatures, the surprises, the special stuff. If you have a special every 3 weeks, honestly, I don't think it's that special. And then you're going to run out of ideas. Make something that's special a little bit more rare, and then you will have a little bit more of a contrast to the norm that makes it more special. They say if you have ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then having ice cream is just part of your meal, and maybe having a sandwich is special to you at that point. It's when you do those special things, often there's two ways of going about this. One is what I recommend people do is build a system where you do have a rotation of seasonals and you have a base layer of signatures and then standard selections of customer-driven flavors that are minimal enough that they can all be winners, basically. You don't have a bunch of inventory on the back end that you just can't move because it's like sugar-free, tropical pumpkin, whatever. That sounds crazy and terrible. But the number one is get a system and work that system. Seasonals are great. Signature, always and forever, kind of, this is who we are. It's tied to our community. It's tied to our local produce and who we are and the flavors we love and our culture and that kind of thing. The second way to go about it is specials that are of the moment, not necessarily seasonal, but something out of left field. I worked at a coffee shop where they did a special drink specifically because of a Broadway show that was coming to the area. And they made it a special because boy, what a community connection. Boy, our town's hosting this really cool show, and we made a drink for it because we're right next to the theater where it's going to be, it's a great business decision, first of all. Second of all, it's a great way to say, hey, we know what's going on in the community. What if your community, like your town, is having an anniversary, 100 years of so-and-so USA? Well, you can create something that would harken back to the flavors that people loved during the founding of your town. I don't know what that would be for you, and hopefully it's not something shocking. And I can't believe that people used to eat cow brain sandwiches, which I know was a thing in the Midwest, but it probably actually tasted good. But I wouldn't recommend it for a signature drink. But you get the point. It's special, but it's not always and forever. It's just like in the moment. So you can keep people excited about that. And the third thing, or the fourth actually, that I was thinking about when I came into this conversation is excitement is relative. I think we covered the facets of excitement that I think are good, just good feelings, positive vibes, if you will. But sometimes people don't want to pay attention to your coffee shop. Sometimes they don't want to know you, and that's okay. They just want coffee. We need those people. There's a whole range of different people that come to our shops, and not all of them are going to be like, yay, your coffee shop is my, the life, I love it. They're not going to be like that all the time. You've got to make sure that you accept the limitations of people's emotional expression towards your business and what they have decided you fulfill in their life. And it might not be to your liking, but they actually do like you. Maybe they don't like you like that, but they like you enough to buy a coffee, and that's kind of what it's about. So sometimes we just have to say, hey, that's fine. We're glad to have you here. As long as we are here and doing as best we can for you and fulfilling you as a customer, and we are working to serve you, staff, it will serve us as a family that owns this business, and it will serve the community. That's what good coffee shops do to keep their customers excited. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think. As always, if you're interested in coaching and consulting, you can email chris@keystotheshop.com. Always taking applications for keyholder coaching groups for experienced coffee shop owners. And if you made it to the end of this episode, I am going to be starting a manager's keyholder coaching group very soon. This is the first time that I'm mentioning it, and I'm gauging interest because there's been a few people that have wanted to join these groups. They are really just for owners at this point, but enough people have said, hey, I'm a manager, or I have a manager that I think this would be good for, or I feel like maybe we should do this. So if that's you, let me know. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a good one. And as always, we'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break from Keys to the Shop.